Thank you, Mayor, Council, staff, and those listening, both in here and at home, for a few moments of your time. Before I actually introduce the team here, I want to cover a little bit about what is co-response. Co-response is the recognition that many police and fire-related calls have underlying factors that are leading to the events that police and fire are responding to. It's a recognition that the best practice is for all of us to work together across our disciplines, and a recognition that sometimes the right response is not a police officer or a firefighter by themselves. The goal is to reduce calls to 911 and provide our community the best response available. Examples of how this can work is help with de-escalation of events from a trained professional, coordinating and engaging King County Crisis and Commitment Team and designated crisis responders, working with those who are unhoused but not yet connected with any appropriate service providers, welfare checks in our community, and proactive follow-up in our community until someone does get paired with a provider or a case manager. A little bit about our program. Human Services, your police department, and your fire department work collaboratively to make the Burien model. The first component of the model was approved by council in 2021 during the public safety enhancement process. And that was a co-response model that included a firefighter EMS with a mental health professional. And the second element of this was approved in 2022 by King County, and it's a funded program through King County to have a police officer riding with a mental health professional. Again, that program is actually funded through King County, and our agreement was that we would manage the program and collect correction with our other programs, and that the contracts and deliverable reporting would be done by Burien Human Services. With that, we've selected both the detective and the mental health professional that are serving the city of Burien. First of all, I want to introduce Detective Scott Mandela. Most of you guys know him. He's been here for a long, long time. He is an original member of the Burien Crime Reduction Unit. He is a police liaison to the LEAD program. He is a coordinator with the Community Court program. He is a state instructor for crisis intervention. All officers in the state are required to take annual in-service training, and he is a featured speaker for the state in-service training component. He is a navigation team participant. Basically, if you name it, he's been involved in it. And in addition to that, for the last 5 years, he comes into my office at least once a week advocating for a co-responder program. So he is one of the people behind bringing this program to Burien. The next person I would like to introduce is our mental health professional, Daisy Espinoza. She has a master's degree in social work from the University of Southern California. Her work history includes tutoring youth and families, working with low-income families in foster care environments, as a wellness coordinator, a high school outreach coordinator, and an extensive overall background in social work in her community. She is also able to provide culturally appropriate care and is a native Spanish speaker. Finally, in addition to the formal program, some of our early successes that we've seen with this program are some of the less specific things that having a mental health professional brings to our community. So some examples include an officer sending me an email complimenting having one of the easiest times investigating a domestic violence report because this team came and dealt with the family trauma while we were focused on the investigation. They've also helped an accident survivor processing the impact of a collision that they were just involved in, and the emotional reaction bystanders experienced after CPR in our community. Additionally, several officers have complimented the ability to help them understand what resources are available in our community. So these are some of those tangent benefits that you get by having this type of a resource in your police department. And with that, I'd like to introduce Daisy Espinoza and Detective Scott Mandela. If you guys will come up here for any questions. And I would actually be remiss without also introducing their unit supervisor is Sergeant Steve Kashihiro, who is our crime reduction unit supervisor.
Good evening. I'm not going to lie. The applause makes it a little awkward. Really happy to be here. I'll just introduce myself a little bit, I guess, for those who don't know me. I've been working in the contract city of Burien for the sheriff's office now since 2009. 2009, I was a brand new cop when I threw my patrol car off the roadway, in a very violent fashion and recovered from a traumatic brain injury with the help of Harborview Medical Center and North Highline Fire. And ever since my recovery from that, I think I've been able to empathize a lot more with folks who are going through either living through trauma or recovering from mental illness, or might even suspect they have a mental illness, afraid to reach out for help. And that's kind of where I put a lot of my, I suppose, my career emphasis and my training. So Burien was awesome. They gave me the opportunity to take part in a lot of crisis intervention team training, EVOC training, making sure that cops drive safer after my accident, and helping out a lot with community court and the lead and some of the jail diversion programs. I really enjoy doing it. I try to kind of nip at the heels of some of the service providers and continually asking them questions. Hey, how are we, what's the next step, or how can we make our referral process easier for our officers? What resources do you have that will be efficient or beneficial for the community at large, not just someone who the law enforcement comes in contact with all the time. And so for the past 3 or 4 months, I've been blessed to finally, like Chief said, I've been kind of knocking at the co-responder door in the city of Burien for about 5 or 6 years now. And so just for the past 3 or 4 months working with Daisy Espinoza, the two of us, I mean, every day we come into work, we feel like we're trying to take a sip from a fire hydrant. There's more than we can take in. There's not another one of our teams. So trying to learn everything we can and share that information.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daisy, and I'm very excited to be here and just in the city of Burien as well, working with everyone, just with my experience and knowledge, just helping members in the community as well as deputies at the police station. Thank you.
I dare you to ask me a question. I'll have an answer. I'll try. I'm sitting next to my chief, but if you have questions about a co-response program and I don't have the answer, I'll try to find it for you, or I'll call someone to find that answer. But if you want to learn about it.
My question. Anyone have questions for the team?
Not a
Councilmember
question,
Mora.
not a question, but just wanted to tell you guys, thank you for your guys' service.
No, absolutely. I'm proud to wake up and do this when I come to work.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thanks, Mayor. And yeah, I want to echo the comment of appreciation for the work you guys are doing, and did have a question for maybe our chief, not so the squad here, but you had mentioned that the team is split in how we fund it with King County Sheriff's Office. When we do the administrative human services side of things and they provide the officers. Is that correct?
Kind of. So the deal that we made with King County on this particular position is that the officer is actually an unincorporated King County officer, not a City of Burien asset. And Daisy's contract is paid for entirely. So our commitment is that we will manage the program and supervise the program, as well as dealing with all of the grant components out of the human services side. And then Detective Mandela and Daisy are assets for both the city and for North Highline. So it's a King County program that we're managing for them as we're building out the co-response programs.
Perfect. And would it be correct to say that this a separate line item or program outside of our general agreement with the sheriff's office for being a contract city?
Kind of. It's even better. There's no line item. It's the
Gotcha.
staff
So it's
time
not
for
part
the
of
management
the
supervision.
agreement that we have with sheriffs. Gotcha.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask because I would love for us to invest more as we come up to be doing some of our sheriff agreements in the future into providing resources specific to this program. That's all I wanted to find out more about. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Garcia, you were kind of going in and out, and you might need to turn off your video when you speak. Okay, Councilmember Sarah.
I want to thank you both for providing this program and also for letting us meet you and sharing a little bit about who you are and how who you are informs the work that you do. I think that it's really, those connections are really important, and understanding what the processing that you're doing when you encounter somebody out in the community and provide support for them is very helpful to understand. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council members?
Councilmember Mata has his hand up.
Okay, Councilmember Mata.
First, I want to thank Dr. Mandela. I know I've met with you several times, and thank you for your work. You got a partner in Espinosa. Welcome to Washington from Los Angeles. That's a really shocking, different environment and pace. You know, I've been on this council now for, what is it, going on 6 years now. And I'm happy that you all, the pioneers to this program, of how do we reinvent policing, because that's been the way that it's been portrayed. How do we redream policing? You know, we have a lot of stores in this city that have a lot of broken windows, right? And we got a program that we're going to help be able to fund to make sure that that doesn't happen again. We also have a graffiti problem, major graffiti problem. Some of this is obviously due to mental health illness. Some of it's due to the side effects of poverty. And I know that we have said, well, we don't want the police to handle some of these calls. So what's happened is generally they get dropped off at the emergency room, people having mental health episodes, or even drugs that may have them acting a certain way. That's why I do believe that we need to have some kind of system where we have emergency rooms now. And, you know, I got to tell you, the city of Burien, we have an emergency room, and I've used that emergency room with my children. And so I'm happy that we have an emergency room. With saying that, there's also side effects of having an emergency room in a town. And I know that mental health is not, we don't really have much jurisdiction when it comes to mental health illness. It's really the county. So I would like to, you know, as we move forward here, because, you know, I'm of the mind as well that, you know, when somebody's suffering a mental health episode, and there's not much more you can do. I mean, you know, it's like, this is not a communist country. This is the United States of America. So if somebody's running around with their arms up in the air and talking to themselves, well, you know, I mean, there's a constitutional right there. Now, if they're harming someone, that's a different story. So I do believe that it's the right time. I'm very happy to hear that you're bilingual. This community here, we have a big Latino population. It's been changing for a long time. As we know that this city's been doing a hard job in the last 6 years to build that trust with the police department. And we've had ups and downs, not only when it comes to mental health illness, but also when it comes to gang violence, graffiti. And so who ends up pretty much having to deal with some of those situations, which I'm happy that I don't have to deal alone with it. And I want to thank the chief, because I know he's always known that it's important to make sure that we have people that speak different language, especially a community where it's diverse as this one. And then now that the city manager, because I don't feel alone having to deal with some of the, you know, situations that we have when you're having to deal with side effects of poverty. So I want to welcome you to the city. You know, it's needed. You know, I think that in the South, we have a lot of states that have bilingual patrol, and I think it's something new for us here in the Northwest, right? And so as we move forward, you know, when these communities are hurting, then it's really good to have someone that reflects that community, understands that. So I want to thank you for that. Also, you know, I've spoken to you, Detective, several times, and I never heard of why you got into this work. I didn't know that you were in such an accident that you were severely hurt. And I think that when somebody goes through some dramatic situations that way, it makes you learn to appreciate life. You know, I was in an injury where I hurt myself pretty bad, and I couldn't walk for several months, and I was in a wheelchair. I think that's why I became a big activist and when it comes to people in wheelchairs, because I don't think unless you've been in a wheelchair, you know how much of a gift it is to have legs. And so with that, I want to welcome you. I want to thank you for continuing to stay in the stressful work, because there's no right answer to it. I mean, we have some people that say we should bring a bus, load up all these individuals that are suffering from mental health and that are unhoused and get them out of here. Well, this is America. That's just not going to happen. We have the other side that says that it's okay to have camping and have people, you know, who are, you know, having mental health episodes, because if we don't have the services, then what do we do, right? So we're caught between a rock and a wall, because the reality is it's the lack of funding, the lack of beds. So I think here, as you continue to do your work, we'll be able to see what are those obstacles and what are those walls, and why can't we come up with probably not 100% solution, because I think when we talk about unhoused people, I learned the word when I was going to school, and I speak Spanish, and I didn't know what the word hobo was. And so we've had hobos in our communities for a long time, right? And we've had settlers for a long time. So again, thank you very much, Ms. Espinosa. I look forward to working with you and getting to learn, your background. I love this community, and I love the change that it's having, but it's also putting a lot of pressure, on our residents and our businesses. And sometimes it's left to the police officers to have to deal with it. And I think you have a great chief here who, backs his detectives up and figures out, okay, if this is not working, then what can we do to make it work? And along with Colleen, who's not here, I know when we went to Los Angeles, we wanted to see what kind of programs were over there with Chief Bo and our Human Services Director about 3 or 4 years ago. And it was a good place to see, although we have challenges, because we're becoming a small city to an urban city with urban problems with the lack of funding. So that, thank you very much, and welcome to Burien.
Thanks, Councilmember Mata.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
I just want to say that incident when I crashed my car was the citizens of North Highline and Burien. I was driving like an idiot, and I left the road at 90 miles an hour. And a pair of felons that King County Sheriff's Office and Burien Police had arrested and tased many times before, they saw me drive past their driveway at 90 miles an hour, and they said, "There's no way that cop's making that next turn." They heard me wreck. They ran down to my car accident, pulled the fence pole out of my windshield, and flagged the next cop coming down. So regardless if someone's addicted or homeless, I'm going to give someone a fair shot. And if they're living on the side of the road and someone's not calling 911, I'm going to stop my car, I'm going to get out, and I'm going to say hi to that person, because they're a person. They're not a homeless individual living on the street. They're a person in the city who needs services and resources. And just because I'm a cop doesn't mean that they don't need those services from me. If I have the ability, I'm one of 2 people in Burien PD right now who is more aware of anybody else than the resource. I'm going to give those resources because everyone needs them. And then I'm going to follow up with that resource and say, did you connect with the person who needs the services? And I hope everyone can do a little bit of that. Just following up. What's out there? Who can help who? Because it can't just be the PD, and it can't just be the people who call 911 either. Sorry.
Thank you. I have a question about what data is available to you to help you sort of perhaps target where or predict when you would need to deploy your team, and what type of data are we collecting, and so that we can show the need for this program ongoing?
Sure. Twofold question. One is, right now the team is doing 2 different bodies of work. One is a response based on radio calls. So it's after we get a call about something, they triage what they can get to and what's appropriate. The other thing that they can do is follow-up work. So if patrol officers go out on a Saturday afternoon and deal with the situation, they can print off their report, drop it in the box, and when this team comes back on their days, off their furlough days for their work days, they'll do the follow-up work. So they'll go out and proactively do that follow-up work in the community. So those are the 2 ways that they're getting calls. As far as data, we have a whole data agreement as part of our funding, and that's part of Colleen's work, is collecting all those stats. I was looking at them the other day, 91 different contacts for various things, and it's outlined like what those data points are. We talked about this a little bit beforehand. We plan on coming back to council at the 6-month and 12-month mark with the actual data report once we have those deliverables, and we've had time to really go through and make sure we have some sort of numbers that mean something, as opposed to what we have now, which is a bunch of raw data.
Okay. Well, thank you for being proactive on that. I look forward to that report, and just really interested in how frequently the team needs to respond on a daily basis. So that would be great.